Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning. We are going to be talking about a very important venue, not only in regards to New York City, but worldwide. It is a central destination and major pinnacle if you are a popular music performer specifically, and that venue is Madison Square Garden. I'm sure a number of you have been to a concert at MSG. I'm sure there are tons of you who also haven't. Regardless of this, I want to inform you about the interesting history of this venue, who funded it, what it's like inside, and some major acts that have passed through it. As always, I've prepared some lecture notes for today, so let me go ahead and pull them up. Awesome. So like I said, we're going to be talking about Madison Square Garden. We're going to deal with this left-hand side of my my lecture notes first, and then talk about, moving forward, mostly in decades, important acts and tours that have come through by major pop artists. So just to make sure that we know where we're talking about, Madison Square Garden's current location is between 7th and 8th Avenue, between 31st Street and 33rd Street. And it is located right in the back of / on top of Penn Station. And we're going to talk about the history of Penn Station a little bit because of its intersection with Madison Square Garden. So the story of this venue really begins in 1879, and the original location of Madison Square Garden was not where it is right now. It was actually at Madison Square, and so where is Madison Square? It's on 26th Street and Madison. The original building was actually leased to P.T. Barnum, like the circus guy, Barnum and Bailey's circus. And the initial way the venue looked kind of accommodated a more circus-like approach. It had no roof, and it was sort of a almost completely circular seating. But because of the no roof factor and New York is and has been subject to pretty severe weather, the building quickly decayed, and a new building was made in 1890. And P.T. Barnum got in on this new building. Again, like the original building was around for 11 years, but at Carnegie, and we're going to come back to his name during our next lecture, J.P. Morgan, which should ring a bell in terms of a financial name, and others ended up investing in the building at its new, rebuilt at that same location, 26th and Madison. And it initially cost, back in the day when it was built, $3 million, huge price tag on this new building. And it was, despite the major success of P.T. Barnum's initial location, the second location, which was much more weather resistant and huge by comparison, was not nearly as popular. Let's talk about the venue specifics. So at the time, it was the largest hall in the world. So again, we're talking about 1890 at this point. The permanent seating for the largest hall was 8,000 individuals. We're going to go through a number of other performance venues, and that is a staggering number of people to hold in one location. Not only that, but it had floor space for thousands more people. The current Madison Square Garden pales in comparison to some of these numbers. The concert hall seating was a whopping 1,500. There was an additional theater, a smaller theater that would seat 1,200 people. The largest restaurant in the city at that time was also a part of the building. And there was a massive rooftop garden as well. So it really did scream extravagance in 1890. Just despite the fact that it was incredibly luxurious, New York City Life Insurance, who held the mortgage on it, ended up tearing it down in 1925 because it just simply wasn't lucrative enough, which is crazy to think about. So the third, installment of Madison Square Garden, its location is actually significantly more uptown, kind of Hell's Kitchen area, 8th Avenue and 50th Street. In this case, again, huge numbers in terms of seating capacity. We have 3 levels of seating, and you can fit just under 19,000 spectators in this space. So the building was demolished in 1968 in favor of other things that are currently there. And in 1968, Madison Square Garden moved to its location where it currently is, where it seats, 20,000 spectators, and is at this point, a lot of people think is a huge nuisance, and I might actually agree with that. So in 2013, the Manhattan Board actually voted against renewing the contract for Madison Square Garden. So in 2023, which is coming up actually relatively soon, there's going to be a new location for Madison Square Garden once more. And the biggest reason is because it has a major hindering on the expansion of Penn Station. And if you have not, even if you've not been to Madison Square Garden, you, I'm sure, have passed through Penn Station. And in talking about Penn Station, we sort of need to discuss a little bit of the subway system, which comes around, like 1910, right? And so this initial venue for Madison Square Garden is pre-subway existence. The second location is also pre-subway existence. We're also going to talk about that in regards to Carnegie Hall. But the subway is going to make a lot more of the open space that's available in New York City, specifically above Union Square, where everything was really, the uptown and downtown divide was much different in 1910. The furthest uptown you would go is really like the edge of Central Park, and that was considered like considerably uptown. In any case, so not to get too far into the history of the subway, but I'm sure you know a little bit of it. It's currently one complete system. I don't mean that in terms of a value judgment. The subway could use a lot of fixing at this point still, but it's owned by the city, and it is one unified company or one unified utility entity. And I guess it is a company because you do, well, anyway. So the previous to this point, there were different lines, and part of the coloring of the system has to do with who owned what lines. But if you were to travel in the subway, it would at some point you might have to actually, a transfer might not be available because you were switching company lines. And so the continued navigation of making the subway system more efficient ends up having a major impact on venues and their locations in the city, of course. So Penn Station, the original Penn Station, wow. So Penn Station right now has had a major, somewhat of a revamp. It continues to need modifications. But back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I'm talking 1910 to 1963, the original Penn Station was a really gorgeous building. It had a really similar structure to the current Penn Station, but the architecture and the look of the building was much more gratifying. So it had 11 platforms serving 21 tracks, again, very similar to today. And the Penn Railroad sold the rights to the building after World War II, in order to recoup some of the losses, mostly because, the World Wars ended up having a major impact on the necessity for public transportation in major metropolitan areas. And so ridership ended up severely decreasing in the 50s, believe it or not. I also found that somewhat surprising. It hit Penn Station relatively hard, and the building was sold because it just wasn't attracting that much foot traffic. But it was a show-stopping building. I'm going to pull up some footage of it so I can show you a little slice of New York history.
November 27th, 1910, was a day New Yorkers had been anticipating for nearly a decade. Pennsylvania Station, a monumental train terminal in the heart of Manhattan, finally opened to the public. The excitement was palpable.
There were throngs of people in the station that day. It was as if someone took them to ancient Rome and ancient Greece. I mean, they'd never seen anything like that.
Covering nearly 8 acres, the building was the 4th largest in the world. The main waiting room, which extended the length of 2 city blocks and rose 150 feet high, was comparable to the nave at St. Peter's in Rome, in both size and splendor. A French visitor openly sobbed, noted a reporter, because such a beautiful affair was just a railway station. Perched above the crowd was a statue of the man who had died bringing the station to life. Alexander Cassatt, president of the Pennsylvania Railroad, had defied legions of skeptics and gambled millions of dollars to link the nation's biggest railroad to America's greatest city. It was a rare example of a private investment that would clearly benefit the public.
Cassatt believed that he was performing a valuable service not only for his company, but a valuable service for the country.
The unveiling of the station represented the culmination of an unprecedented engineering project, the building of 16 miles of underground tunnels. 7 miles were under the Hudson and East Rivers, 2 of the busiest and most geologically complex waterways in the world.
When the Pennsylvania Railroad undertakes to build tunnels where nobody thought tunnels could be built, it's almost as though they're going to go to the moon.
The scale of this was pharaonic. It was huge. It was the biggest civil engineering project of its time.
Pennsylvania Station is one of the greatest symbols of monumental public space that any American city has ever had. It ennobles the acts of daily life. It makes every citizen feel important.
We were poor, we didn't have very much. My aunt said to me, when I walked into Penn Station, I felt like a queen, because I felt as if someone had done that for me.
As 100,000 people streamed through its doors on opening day, a half-dozen granite eagles peered down on each entrance.
So I'd love to pour over this opening footage. However, please reference the remainder of this video. It's very, very interesting. I just wanted to show you what New York looked like, what the scale of construction was on Penn Station, and what a true shame and travesty it was that that building was sold off and then knocked down in place of what is the current Penn Station, because this was an architectural beauty. And it really made coming into the city a beautiful arrival for many people. And it showed the world how elegant New York could be. So one of the main themes in this class, and it should be sort of an obvious thing to point to historically, is that location ends up being a major factor in shaping a number of directions of from economy to culture. And so for this class, we will be discussing the importance of location. Well, we're already in New York, but what is going to change New York and make it more inhabitable? The subway is one of them, and Penn Station is going to be an epicenter of travel and then also location. So 1968, new Penn Station happens alongside of alongside of the creation of Madison Square Garden, which is somewhat attached to Penn Station. Logically makes a little bit of sense. It's a major point of transportation. People can get to the venue with a relative amount of ease. However, as I sort of made clear, it is hindering the expansion of Penn Station, which at this point is somewhat necessary. So the lease has not been renewed, so we're going to see Madison Square Garden have a yet another destination in New York, probably going to be closer to the water side, perhaps near the sort of on the edge of the like West End, but we will see about that. Before we leave off this section talking about the history of the venue, I want to give you a look at what some of the earlier Madison Square Garden venues have looked like. So this is what P.T. Barnum's original Madison Square Garden looked like. All of this was open air, and like I said, after 11 years, the venue was no longer suitable for the public and moved to that huge location, or replaced this location with a even more massive performance hall at that time. So hopefully this has been somewhat interesting in talking a little bit about the history of the venue. I'm going to toggle over to my lecture notes one more time to end our first section. We're going to talk about a number of different popular music acts that have come through Madison Square Garden in parts 2, 3, and 4. In our second part, we're going to start though by getting a look inside of the venue as it more currently stands, to give you an idea of its magnitude. It is a huge space, obviously big enough to house some of these major names within popular music as well, like Led Zeppelin, Michael Jackson, David Bowie, Britney Spears. So we have a fun remainder of the lecture to cover when getting into a little bit more of the specifics of music. So I will see you for part 2 shortly.